Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Xyzal is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Xyzal keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all, take Xyzal at night.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Some murders shake the world to its core. Some mysteries never unravel. And some tragedies leave us asking one question: how could this happen? From mass killings that leave entire communities in shock, to unsolved disappearances that haunt families for decades, you'll hear it all on Season 6 of 90s Crime Time. In each episode of this season, we'll dig deep into some of the deadliest massacres to the coldest calculated murders, and you'll find out what made these cases some of the most chilling cases of the decade, even if you haven't heard of some of them. From small towns to busy cities, from quiet nights to violent acts that shatter peace, 90s Crime Time will bring you stories of murder and mystery. So set your calendars and tune in on January 9th, 2024 to the Season 6 premiere of 90s Crime Time. And I'll see you then.
Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever been haunted? Do you believe in such things? The 3 places we cover tonight might just change your mind. You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of America's Most Haunted.
Perhaps even more disturbing tonight, a report out of Indiana. You may have seen this on The Factor. Wait until you hear where we're taking the story. The reports suggest that demons took over a family in their home. And Trace Gallagher has the details. Trace?
And Megan, the comparisons to the Amityville are notable because it was just days after the Ammon family moved into their house. They say the horror began, the black flies swarming, children being levitated, shadowy figures pacing the house. Here's the mother. Listen.
And I saw one like coming into full image. It was coming out of my closet. I've never seen it like that before.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the false spring of Georgia.
Oh yeah, it's definitely fall spring. It's like 70 tonight, and they're supposed to, it's by the end of next week or the end of this, I don't know, by the end of some damn time, it's supposed to be colder than shit again.
Hey, I think it's around Valentine's Day. It's supposed to get cold as all get out again. Yeah, there's a pollen count in first week of February. There's a pollen count.
That's insane.
Yeah, I may have posted it to our Instagram stories thing. I saw a good little meme about seasons in Georgia, and they had the old fall spring there. And then they had the other ones. I was like, yep, that'll be next. Yep. Remember that one? So, yeah, fun times with the weather. By the time...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
By the time this one comes out, young son will be a resident of the great state of Kentucky.
Be honest with the people. Are you going to cry?
Probably. Yeah.
You going to cry?
I probably
He
am.
says, my boy.
I may not do it in front of him, but I'm sure there'll be some tears.
Yes, you going to hug him and you going to cry your eyes out.
But
I'm not blaming you, though. I'm making fun of you a little bit, but shit, I know I would too.
one of the things about him going up there is it's supposed to be in the mid to upper 60s here. The high up there, I think the day he starts for orientation's 41.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, the great state of Kentucky said, come on in, son.
Gotta love it. How's your week been other than that?
I have had the crud. I don't know what happened. Sinus infection. Somehow I survived duck season and all that cold weather, wading through ice and all that stuff, and did not get sick. And then I woke up Sunday morning and I was like, man, something's wrong. And usually that's followed by death. And I suffered through Monday and Tuesday, and then I just couldn't go yesterday and should have called in today, but I didn't. They were testing, and my co-teacher was like, what are you doing? And I was like, coming to class. She was like, what are you doing? I was like, they're testing. I ain't giving up a sick day for a test. You crazy?
Right.
Playoffs.
I give up a sick day for a duck hunt.
Yeah, or anything else. I
Right.
stubbed my toe, but I ain't giving up a test day.
Dude, last week we all got so sick at my school. Last Friday they shut two. There's 3 self-contained classes. They shut 2 of them down. Mine and the other one. One of the parapros in the other room went to the hospital for flu. Like, it was bad.
Well, they make
Monday and Tuesday of this week, I had 4 kids out both days.
Dang.
I only got 7 kids.
Yeah.
So
They make a combined test now that'll test you for COVID flu A and flu B. And man, yesterday at lunchtime, I thought I've got one of the 3. And so I went and got a test and tickled my brain and counted it down, and I was negative, but I still am not sure. It's like I was telling my wife, it's like the COVID roller coaster. The last time I had COVID, you'll feel good, and then all of a sudden, man, you'll feel like somebody just punched you in the face. And I can't sleep. That's what I was concerned about when I had COVID. The 2 times I've had COVID, I can't sleep, man. I'm constantly waking up. I can't get comfortable.
Poor baby.
Well, I know I'm preaching to the choir about not being able to sleep. But
only got 4 hours. Like, oh, man.
For the rest of the human population.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Even though I had kids out, what's happened to me this week might end up being a damn Patreon special again. I'll tell you that much.
I think we need to, about once a month, let's just rehash what good old Coach has seen and heard and saw.
If you,
I did say it twice.
If you ever heard the pickle story, this one might be just as good.
I don't know if it's good. It's a front runner, but it's not. I mean, Pickle's up there by itself.
It is. You're right.
I mean, who else? What other story could we tell? I don't think they're going to be able to find a plushie toy for the story you want to tell.
What now? Say that one more time. I'm so sorry.
I said the Pickle story got us 2 plushies. I don't think they're going to be able to find a plushie for the story you want to tell.
I don't know. They might make a chocolate starfish plushie. You never know.
They might. They might. All right. So
Could be, Rabbit. Could
be, Rabbit. Could be. As Coach alluded to, we are going off the cuff because he's had a week. I don't feel good. So you getting the old, just listen to him talk. We decided that we were going to do a triple play or a 4-part, not 4-part, but a 4 whatever quadruple play on some haunted places. And more than likely, we will probably do at least one deep dive full episode on one of these places tonight. But there's some extremely haunted, spooky places out there. And so we just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard came up with these three. And I'm sure that we will get recommendations after this. And we will definitely do another triple play and then or some regular Tuesday shows on it.
Well, what do you think? You ever been haunted? What do you think about ghosts? You ever seen anything you couldn't explain?
Not ghostly, I've not, but I've heard enough people talk about it that I'm a believer.
I've had 2 experiences that I think could have been, but, you know, I don't know. One, I don't know. It just could have been a coincidence. But I was at Moon River Brewing Company in Savannah, Georgia.
Well, hell, if you're in Savannah, the whole town's haunted.
I can hold on. I'll tell you a funny story about that too. Which is supposedly the most haunted building in Savannah. And Savannah's the most haunted city in Georgia. And I was drinking a beer at the bar with my wife at the time, who is now my ex-wife, who got engaged. Congratulations to her. I'm also engaged to a very lovely woman, by the way. But anyway, I'm sitting there drinking a beer, and I feel something touch the back of my neck. Like, for real. And I kind of, like, I didn't even know the building was haunted till much later. And I was like, oh, shit. But anyway, we went on one of those ghost tours in Savannah. And it was in a hearse, you know, you had to sit, like, and our tour guide was Spooky Steve. And what was funny is every place we went, the haunting, the last time they saw the ghost got closer in time. So he was like, 4 months ago, a young woman from New York saw 3 ghosts dancing under the tree. Next place, in 2 months. Da, 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 da. And we just were cracking up because we were like, if you were here just 15 minutes ago. Like, oh no, Spooky Steve.
So when I was down there early October for that funeral, I was walking back to my hotel from dinner, and I bet I saw 4 of those hearse tour hearses. I also saw a lot of people taking naps on the cobblestone too.
Oh yeah, they do that. Anyway, the second thing that I would think, all right, I lived in a home my friend owned, big house, and he let me, his other friend, and his other friend's stepbrother live in the house for cheap. Well, unfortunately, when we were in middle school, his mother perished in a plane crash. She was piloting a prop plane, and it crashed, and she died. But anyway, so there was a garage and the door that comes into the house from the garage, right? I'm in the house alone. I'm drinking beer, playing PlayStation in my room. And all of a sudden I hear what sounds like somebody had opened that door and slammed it as hard as you could possibly slam it. I have no doubt that's what it was. I jump up, I run. It's dark. It's dark in the living room. It's dark in the kitchen. I get to that door. I open it. The garage is empty. I'm like, what the actual fuck? So I'm just saying. I'm not saying what it was. I'm just telling you what happened.
No, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I know I saw a thing the other day. I don't know what it was on, but the lady was saying, it's something along the lines of, have you ever seen a ghost? She told the story that when she was younger, her and her grandparents had gone to the grocery store, and as they were walking in, an elderly man.
Yeah, I sent you that.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, did you?
Well, you sent, like, you're about as bad as Heater.
Well, thanks. Who sends you every damn thing?
Well, between you and Heater, my phone bill should be halved between the two of you.
I'm looking at something he sent me right now. He sends good stuff, though, man.
He does.
Don't get me wrong.
Oh, well, you send good stuff, too. I just can't remember who sends it. So you calm your tits there, Tennessee boy. Okay, so let's start her off with the old disturbing story of the Waverly Hills Sanatorium from the great state of Kentucky. So I've seen
Louisville, Kentucky. I love Louisville, Kentucky. If you live in, near, or around Louisville, Kentucky, go to the Brown Hotel and get you a hot brown. If you don't know what a hot brown is, you are fucking missing out, man. When you go to Kentucky,
I'm not going to Louisville. We'll be in Lexington.
Oh, shit. Never mind.
Yeah, wrong side. Wrong side.
I ain't scared of the boys in Frankfurt. But if you're
hold on. We're gonna take a minute.
Yeah.
And we're gonna acknowledge that's pretty badass. What are you talking about?
This guy's fucking awesome.
So are we gonna bust this badass, or are we gonna let the Stadies do it?
That's some badass shit. If you don't know what we're talking about, you're missing out too. Watch Justified. Whole damn series. Anyway, I'm just saying, hot brown, amazing. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Good, great googly moogly. Is it good?
All right, back to we're getting off the cooking brews. Back to the mysterious brews. The old Waverly is a bat-winged Gothic building, and it is up there on one of the most haunted places in America, and it has been featured on shows such as The Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Lockdown, I believe that's the one I saw, and the BuzzFeed Unsolved. And Old Waverly has a ghostly reputation, basically because the sanatorium in the first half of the 20th century was not a mental hospital, but it did provide treatment and convalescence for chronic illnesses such as the tuberculosis.
Oh no.
It like in its glory, like restored, it would have been a beautiful building just from the outside if you didn't know anything about it. But Waverly,
that's how they get you.
Oh yeah. Waverly became the site of thousands of deaths in the face of a raging epidemic. Now, again, it wasn't originally a hospital. It was actually a little schoolhouse as it started. And Kentucky Historic Institutions explains that the land was originally the family of Major Thomas H. Hayes, who bought the land outside Louisville, where the sanatorium now stands, in 1883. Since there were no schools in the area, Hayes decided to build a one-room schoolhouse for his own children. He then hired a teacher named Lizzie Lee Harris, who was a big fan of the novels by Sir Walter Scott, known as the Waverly novels, and asked Mr. Hayes if she could name the school Waverly School. He was like, yeah, why not? And he liked the name enough that he called the entire property where the school was at Waverly Hill. So by the end of the 20th century, the tuberculosis epidemic was sweeping the United States, and Louisville was hit pretty hard just because it had the growing industrial economy, and it was also located right there in the Ohio Valley. So the Board of Tuberculosis Hospital was formed in 1906 and wanted to find an appropriate location for a tuberculosis hospital. Since Waverly Hill was thought to be an ideal spot due to its distance from the city, it being a quiet location and it being high in altitude, contributing to what they believed at the time, greatly improved air quality over everything else. The board liked the name Waverly Hill and kept it. So there's a whole thing about how it's spelt. The school was spelt Waverley, and then the sanatorium spelt Waverly. They dropped the E. Yeah, potato. But anyway, in the earliest 20th century, like I said, tuberculosis was running rampant and there was no cure. They called it the White Plague for some reason. And Doctors at the sanatorium had noticed that the patients who were able to rest and had access to clean air and sunshine seemed to be doing better than the others. So as a result, much of the treatment at Waverly was based on what the medical field referred to as, quote, good vibes, which is a huge contrast to the building's current reputation. The location for the hospital itself was meant to contribute to the atmosphere of peace and rest. And Waverly was actually on a tall hill and had a little wooded area around it. So plenty of fresh air, plenty of sunshine. The facilities had 2 large open-air pavilions where the patients were placed to receive their prescribed fresh air and sunshine. Now, there a website called Abandon Online Ads at abandononline.net states that original treatments at Waverly included diets rich in vitamin A and C, lots of protein, and lots of bed rest. Now, none of that was going to cure the disease, but they were basically trying to reduce the suffering and keep the patients in good spirits and hopefully stop the spread. Now, as the official Waverly Hills site explains, the original sanatorium was only a 2-story frame building with half-timber design, with an administration building and open-air pavilions for patients to be exposed to air and sun. The original building was meant to hold 40 to 50 patients at one time. Hopefully, they were hopeful that those 40 to 50 would be split between male and female. However, when the epidemic reached its highest level in 1910, Louisville was basically hit harder than anybody around them because of its low-lying position on the banks of the Ohio. Waverly was soon overwhelmed with over 140 patients, and keep in mind that's 100 over what it was designed to hold, and as a result, they had to start adding on quickly. So in 1924, construction began on a new building that would be 4 stories, brick and concrete, and cover almost 180,000 square feet.
Dang.
Yeah, that's a huge-ass place, dude.
Yeah, that's huge.
Huge. Now, this one would include separate rooms for patients rather than communal rooms. It also would take in 4 sunrooms, some labs, some rec rooms, and it was designed to hold up to 400 patients. And it turned out they were going to need that space pretty quickly because by the late 1930s, tuberculosis was the leading cause of death in Kentucky. And in fact, Kentucky led the nation in tuberculosis deaths due to a lack of state funding, long-term treatment options, and more permanent facilities like Waverly. Some 2,000 people a year were dying of tuberculosis in Kentucky alone. The sunshine and good vibes was basically the selling point. You have to remember that tuberculosis was incurable. It was highly contagious and was spreading everywhere. So if you went to Waverly, you were not going back home. Basically, it became a self-contained community for not only tuberculosis patients, but those people that were committed to taking care of tuberculosis patients. Now, here's what's crazy. They allowed a visitor's day in which visitors could come and hang out with their infectious-ass relatives and then go back to their regular lives.
No freaking way.
Yes, they did.
Are you joking right now?
I'm serious as a heart attack, son. I'm as serious. I can't do it, but anyway. So the community at Waverly became essentially its own city and eventually got its own zip code and its own post office. So they had everything they needed. They had a farm. They raised their own fruits and vegetables, had a slaughterhouse, butchered their own meat. They even had a water treatment facility on site.
You got an infectious, incurable disease and you got to butcher your own meat?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Damn, I'm a pussy.
Shit. They also had laundry facilities and an auto maintenance garage. These facilities had to support not only the patients, but the doctors, the nurses, and the other work staff. And like I said, those people that worked there had to separate themselves from society as well. The uninfected children of the patients that were there had their own floor at the sanatorium where they had to live separate from the outside world. Now, the philosophy behind all this is great. But like I said, tuberculosis is a horrible disease, and the patient suffering, coughing up bloody mucus, I mean, it's not something for the weak of heart. So while they were giving them sunlight and bed rest and healthy foods and fresh air, they were also including surgical methods that at the time were cutting edge, but sound pretty barbaric now. And some of those were the artificial pneumothorax, which involved blowing air into either the lung itself or the cavity between the lungs in order to artificially collapse the diseased portion of the lung, allowing it to rest and theoretically allowing the lesions caused by tuberculosis to heal. Now, patients who were unlikely to survive this procedure tried to maximize rest to their lungs by lying on the side most affected by the lesions, restricting the movement of the diseased lung naturally and with posture and gravity. We get into the old body shoot. And
the what?
Yeah, they had a body shoot. And while it is impossible to say how many people died at Waverly during its time as a TB hospital, like I said, it was the leading cause of death. Some of the legendary claims are that 60,000 people died. And
if you have 60,000 people die in the same place, if ghosts are real, there going to be one or two there.
Well, they said that has been grossly exaggerated, and it's more like 8,000. But
still.
That's what I was about to say. But I'm still going to go with your first thought. If you've got 8,000 people that have died at one spot, there's going to be some people caught in between.
That's like, hey, man, do you know that there might be ghosts at Gettysburg? Well, no shit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
So
how'd they get there?
The height of the epidemic saw 152 people die in 1945 at Waverly. So just like you said, there's no shortage of dead bodies that had to be moved out, and they didn't want the patients seeing people pass away, so they were trying to do the old good vibes, no bummers, so they built a body chute. And they moved these bodies in secret, and it was basically a secret tunnel through which the doctors and administrator would wheel these bodies that had succumbed to tuberculosis. The enclosed tunnel led from the hospital to train tracks at the bottom of the hill where the bodies could be lowered on the trains that would carry them away. I just don't get it, man. Although Waverly did its best to make life as comfortable as possible for its patients and their families, nothing was going to make it better until a cure was found. As luck would have it, in 1943, they found the new antibiotic streptomycin that was an effective combatant against tuberculosis. However, as Kentucky Historic Institutions explains, this treatment was not made available for 6 years at Waverly.
What?
Yeah, you would think that if it was a sanatorium specifically designed for tuberculosis, that might have been where you wanted to carry out your clinical trials.
Like, we've got a place dedicated to this. Well, we've got a cure. Yeah, but we're not giving it to them. Why? Why? Because fuck them. That's why.
That's the way I read it.
I may have paraphrased a little bit, but yeah, that's the gist.
That's the gist. That's the Reader's Digest version. So basically now if you were diagnosed with tuberculosis, you were given a shot of the old antibiotic or new treatment, and there wasn't many new patients coming in, which is good because you wanted to get it under control. The number of patients dropped from 373 in 1950 to 293 in 1960. In 1962, Waverly closed as a TB hospital, and all of the patients were transferred to regular hospitals. The buildings sat empty for nearly a year, and then it was reopened in 1963 as the Woodhaven Geriatric Center, a live-in nursing facility for elderly patients with dementia, mobility issues, or severe mental disabilities. Now, Woodhaven operated at the site until 1982 when it was closed by the state because... Is this where Geraldo went?
I don't know.
Anyway, it was closed because
I think he went somewhere like in New England.
Okay.
I don't think Geraldo would be coming all the way down to Louisville. I don't know why. I have absolutely no proof, nor am I going to Google it. But to me, I think that makes sense.
I agree with you.
Somebody fact check me.
I concur. So a grand jury found multiple instances of patient abuse, signs of neglect at the facility, so the state shut her down. And all of those patients were transferred to another care facility. After Woodhaven was closed for criminal abuse, the majority of the land in the buildings were sold off to a developer who intended to use the building as a minimum security state prison. However, a massive wave of protests from the locals squashed that plan. And the backup plan was to turn the building into apartments. And that fell through in 1996. And that's lack of funds. I wonder why. How are you going to sell that? Hey, come live at the TB hospital. It might be haunted.
But the rent's all right. I mean, today, if it's affordable rent today, I'm guaranteed it'd sell out. Guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
You telling me it's haunted by the ghost of 60,000 tuberculosis patients, but rent's only $500 a month? I will take 2 apartments, please, sir.
Yes. So Waverly in 1996 was purchased by a nonprofit, and they were going to build the world's tallest Jesus statue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the goal was to make a 150-foot tall statue on the roof of Waverly, and they wanted it to look like Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. However...
Which is, honest to God, a beautiful statue.
Yes.
You got to admit that.
Here's what I love about nonprofits. We're going to do this. We're going to save the world. And then they get the estimate for what it's going to cost to do it. It was going to cost $4 million to turn the old TB hospital into an arts and worship center. Between $8 million and $10 million would have to be donated to get the remodel done and the statue built. And the giant Jesus statue was canceled because they only raised $3,000. Just a little short. Just a little short.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah, just a tad. So the building and its surroundings were sold in 2001, and as of today, I think it's still owned by Charles and Tina Mattingly, and they basically made it a historical society. They tried to raise money to keep the exterior from crumbling, I guess is the best way. They have ghost tours. They have haunted house events. And let's be honest, boys and girls, it's not going to be hard to sell it being haunted. Despite it being founded on the principles of feeling good all the time, no matter what your lungs were doing, it's a big old spooky building with a body chute. I think that's about it. The old
That's
Tennessee
all I
Wraith.
have to say
The old
about
Tennessee
that.
Wraith Chasers, I like them boys. They went up there, spent a couple of nights.
I wouldn't. You couldn't pay me to do it.
Oh, I agree with you. Now, the most haunted place inside the sanatorium is supposed to be the 5th floor. And they say that the reason it was so haunted was because that's where the mentally disturbed patients were housed. Particularly room 502 in the center of that little thing is of prime interest to all ghost hunting people. The stories say that it's on that floor that people have seen shapes moving in the windows, heard voices telling them to get out, and even telling them to jump to their own deaths. The stories say that a nurse was found in room 502 in 1928 having hanged herself from a light fixture. Apparently she was what does it say? Oh, yeah. She was in despair over finding out that she was pregnant out of wedlock. And then another nurse who worked in room 502 in 1932 was said to have thrown herself off the roof. But some people say she was pushed. People report that if you are pregnant and you do the tour, you become extremely uncomfortable in room 502. Other people have had compelling forces and voices telling them to jump. I ain't all about all that. It'd have to be broad daylight for me to walk through there.
I wouldn't even do it in daylight, to be honest with you. I ain't about that life.
Now, outside of the 5th floor, there are a number of other commonly reported apparitions around the grounds. One of the most famous one is to have the name of Timmy, the ghost of a young boy who wanders the halls. Do you know how hard it was for me to say Timmy correctly? According to the stories, Timmy moved through the hospital either playing with his own leather ball or seeking someone else to play with. Some guests have reported bringing balls of their own for Timmy, only to subsequently see these float down the hall as if carried by an invisible hand. Some other sightings include an older woman with chains around her wrist, often believed to have been a resident when the building was a geriatric center. This ghost supposedly howls for help and then runs away screaming if anyone approaches her. There is another one known as the Creeper due to its crawling and creeping movements up and around the walls, ceilings, and floors. It's said that the proximity to the Creeper brings with it an overwhelming sense of dread, and there's no explanation on who or what the Creeper might be. Lots of trauma at that place. So yes, out of 8,000 people that died, like Coach said, you gonna find a ghost or two. The Bell Witch is next on our docket.
Man, the Bell Witch, the only thing I really know about is there's a pretty prominent person that has a sighting. Now, it's hard to deny a ghost if the President of the United States claims to have an encounter.
And who would that president be, sir?
That would be our 7th President, Andrew Jackson. Old Hickory.
Old Hickory.
I know for a fact he was our 7th president, but now I'm starting to doubt myself. So hold on, let me Google him.
We're going to take your degree away. So the Bell Witch is one of the...
He was. I was right. Listen, no bullshit. I have a cousin who has written like 3 books about Andrew Jackson. If you're interested, I can't remember the names of the books, but his name is Mark Cheatham. So just get on to Amazon if you're interested in learning about Andrew Jackson. He also did one on Andrew Jackson's nephew, because I remember that one. It's Old Hickory's Nephew is the name of that one.
Well, look at there. We're going to learn it. We're going to learn it, something.
Author.
Oh, good Lord. All right, here we go. So the Bell Witch is one of the most famous and horrifying places in American folklore. centering around the old Bell family in Adams, Tennessee during the 19th century. Now, the legend describes a series of mysterious and malevolent supernatural events that plagued the family at their homestead in Red River, Tennessee. And the entity known as the Bell Witch is said to have possessed a sinister intelligence capable of communicating moving objects and enacting violence. It's also had some poltergeist activity, ghostly voices, and ultimately a death. So in 1817, John Bell, his wife Betsy, and their children started experiencing strange supernatural occurrences.
I'm sorry, I just did some research. He's written 9 books.
There you go.
Total. He's pretty damn smart.
That's what it sounds like.
I know. You know what's messed up is I thought for a long time that I was the first person on my dad's side of the family to go to college.
Boy, was you wrong.
Not only was I wrong, the college I went to wrestle at, he had graduated from already. And now he is a professor at that school.
You think he can get you a job there?
Oh, probably not. I'm just going to go ahead and say no.
So in 1817, John, his wife Betsy, and their children started encountering some unusual people. The first thing, and they say this was the tipping point in the haunting, the poltergeist activity, all the stuff. John was out in the cornfield and moving back towards his home when he sees a dog. And it's not an unnatural thing to see a dog in a cornfield around his home. There's plenty of stray dogs, but this one just seemed off. According to reports, it was like it had been broken and put back together very oddly. So John, always leaving his house strapped, pulls out his Kentucky long rifle and fires a shot. And so said beast runs off. So he walks over to where he thinks the dog was standing and expecting to see prints, hair, the corn beat down, maybe some blood. Nothing. It was as if the dog was never there. There was no paw prints. There was no disturbance on the ground, especially no blood. After that, the Bell family, or John, I apologize. John's son Drew spotted a peculiar bird, and Betsy claimed to have seen a lifeless body of a young girl clad in a green dress hanging from the trees in the nearby forest. Now, these instances started ratcheting itself higher and higher, and this was a borderline poltergeist, I guess, because the kids would stay in one room, and it was two sets of bunk beds. The older boys were on the bottom. They heard what sounded like rats gnawing on wood, and so they jump out of bed, try to find the rat. As soon as their feet hit the floor, the gnawing would stop. And then this is going to ratchet itself up to what sounds like chewing on bone, screaming. It's just bad, very, very bad. And it would take a toll on John the worst. They said that he would be in the home and it was like he would go kind of catatonic, and they would have to snap him out of it, sometimes, physically shaking him to come out of it, and his health was declining with each passing day. Dogs would bark outside and growl at nothing, it appeared. The family heard chains being pulled across the floor. They actually had people from the nearby town come in to their home and watch them sleep so that they could go back to the town and say they're not faking it. And This is one of those we could do a very deep dive in and tell you for instances and times and stuff specifics about it. The family was further disrupted in their bedtime because the linens and the pillows were disappearing. Whatever the entity was, it possessed the ability to speak. At first, the voice was pleasant, and then showed a little bit of knowledge of Scripture. But then it turned malevolent and began insulting John, insulting Betsy, and hurling racial slurs at the Bell's slaves.
I mean, come on. Why we got to get racist?
Damn, racist ghost.
I mean, racist ghosts. That beats all I ever saw.
Oh, you know, it's in Tennessee. What can you do with them boys up there? Nothing. I got nothing. So, the witch seemed to like Betsy, but John, like I said, was the ire of its animosity and endured years of torment. And finally, in December of 1820, John became deathly ill. They got a doctor to come to see what was wrong with him. And the family goes to the medicine cabinet, and there is this unknown vial of dark, smoky-looking liquid. And the doctor's like, if that's not yours, you need to figure out what it is. So they go catch a stray cat and feed it some of this stuff, and it dies instantly. Supposedly, the Bell Witch exclaimed in its disembodied voice, quote, "It's useless for you to try to relieve old Jack. I have got him this time. He will never get up from that bed again. I put it there and gave old Jack a big dose of that black liquid while he was asleep, which fixed him," end quote. John passed away the next day. There was a story. One of the daughters was going to the hen house to get some eggs. As she's walking, she passes a woman dressed all in black with like a black shawl over her face. Kind of thinks it's odd, but keeps on going to get the eggs. As she comes back, the lady's still in the middle of the road, but now the daughter explains it as she's running her hands through her hair, and the closer that she got to this lady, the faster she would run her hands through the hair. But when she got close enough, she wasn't running her hands through her hair. She was ripping chunks of hair out of her head. And the daughter explains that it was so realistic you could hear the hair being pulled from the scalp. So she blows by this lady and runs inside, screams for her sister. The sister comes out. They look out the window, and the lady stops pulling her hair and locks eyes with the one sister that had gone to get the eggs. And she starts, I think she starts shaking in the roadway. And then all of a sudden they see now this lady with 3 kids dressed in white, and they walk around the corner of the house. So they go to another window, and this lady clad in black and the 3 kids in white are all in the trees, making the trees wave violently. About that time, one of the sisters' husbands comes home. They yell for him to come over and see it. He can't see the lady or the kids, but he can see the trees bending unnaturally. And I think it was at that time those 3 decided that they wasn't going to stay there anymore. So if you would like to visit the old Bell Witch property, you can. It is, where am I thinking? You can stay in Springfield, which is the closest town. It's about an hour north of Nashville. There is the Bell Witch Cave, which is considered to be where the witch came from. I was telling my wife about this last night. Somebody, one of the ghost hunter people, maybe old Zach Bagans that we're about to talk about here in a little bit. I think
not a fan.
One of his crew took a rock from the cave, and a lot of bad shit happened to him. So they took that rock back.
I don't know why that's funny. That's just funny. I took that downright back.
You'd have to see that episode. I think it's that one, but it's probably, I mean, just choose one if you Googled or typed in Bell Witch, I'm sure that episode would come up on some app. But anyway, no, thank you. I'm not going in the cave. I don't like caves. I'm sure shit ain't going in one that's a witch is supposed to live in. So no, piss on that.
I don't go caving.
No. Okay, so the last one is Coach's favorite, my wife's man crush. You know,
really?
No, I'm just joking. She hates this guy, and every time he's on, every time he's on TV, I'm like, "Hey, baby, I can get you in the mood," and I show a picture of him. So it's between him, Steven Seagal, and Giorgio Tsoukalos. Anytime those three men are on TV, I pause it, and I'm like, "Hey, what you doing later?" She doesn't find it as funny as I do for some reason.
I have no idea why.
I don't either, man. It's crazy.
He's got to know you're hilarious by now.
I know. Like the meme I posted. Y'all will go spend hundreds of dollars to see a comedian, but I say funny shit and you call me an asshole.
Yeah, for real. funny how that works, right?
So if you've never heard of old Zach Bagans, he is the executive producer and main star of Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel. He has we counted them up. I watched this documentary about this demon house. We counted up 7 or 8 spinoffs for Ghost Adventures. The boy ain't hurting for money. Now, the demon house is actually a house in Gary, Indiana. And it was lived in by a lady called LaToya Amons, and she claimed that her and her 3 young children had been possessed by spirits inside this home between 2011 and 2012. The Gary Police Department and the Indiana Department of Child Services investigated. A priest performed numerous exorcisms, and some of the world's biggest skeptics were turned into believers after witnessing some of the things. It's also, I think, the basis of her possession is part of a spin-off thing on Netflix. What was it called? Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. It ain't saying. But anyway, there's a Netflix series, I think, about loosely based on this lady's possession. And I'm going to tell you something. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Zach's. I think some of the stuff that he does is bullshit. However, if you watch the documentary Demon House, if 1/10 of the shit that they discuss on that documentary is true, they should have set that house on fire. So when he buys it, she's already moved out. He's trying to get in touch with her to talk to her about what's going on. And she's like, no, you've been back in the house. You could have that spirit on you. You're not coming around me. So they go and talk. She's living with her brother at the time across town. They go talk to him. Well, they knock on the door and ask to speak to her, and she's like, no, I'm not doing it. And so they ask the brother, would you mind speaking to us? So he walks out into the parking lot, gets in their vehicle, and they just ask him some questions. He answers them. She locks her own brother out of his house and tells him he's got to go see a priest because she doesn't want any of that back in her life. One of the stories was, and this is all based off memory, so y'all can attack me if you want to, but this is one of the few documentaries on this that I would highly recommend, to be honest with you, because, like I said, if you'll go into it with, you don't get the Zach Bagans you get on the Travel Channel. You get someone that's a little bit more down to earth, which is hard to believe, but when he buys it, it's a house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Like I said, it's supposed to have demon possession. Here's what's fucked up. The police And like I said, the child services worker go in there. The bad luck that is befallen upon them after they come in contact with the family in the house is ungodly. The most, I guess, well-documented cases of possession would be this lady's 9-year-old son was speaking in some deep voice at the hospital and utters some demonic something and starts walking up the wall backwards onto the ceiling. And this is witnessed by hospital staff, a doctor, Child Protective Services caseworker, a police officer, and then the grandmother and the mother. The blinds in the house would leak oil of some sort. Towards the end of the documentary, Zach's going to lock himself in there for 24 hours and they board all the, that's when the bullshit, I feel like, starts with that side of it. But everything up to it is kind of like a historical documentation of what's going on. And the police even come over there, said that someone was trying to break in. Well, one of the neighbors is saying that somebody's trying to break into this house. And if you look up Demon House on Carolina Street, an old picture of it is basically in Gary, Indiana. It's that Midwest town where there's maybe 10 feet between houses, 20 at the most. So when he gets back there, the police are like, man, we're not going in there. And one of the guys was like, you need to set it on fire. And then another guy, one of the police officers is like, no, don't you dare release whatever's in there onto the world. But man, it's weird. They had a lady hear about him buying the house. And so she stops. She had lived there as a child. Well, she brings her 3 kids in there. And then after they leave, like 2 weeks later, one of her daughters does the stigmata stuff on her wrist with a pin and then tries to attack her mother and then starts repeatedly stabbing herself in the stomach.
Good Lord.
Dude, there's some freaky shit that goes on. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you'll watch it up until he starts to lock himself in there, it'll give you the heebie-jeebies, man. And I'm totally convinced this house was possessed.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it.
One of the things was...
I'm no expert.
Yeah. The 9-year-old son, after he got out, described what it felt like to be killed. That's the one that walked up the wall in the hospital. The 7-year-old tried to kill the 9-year-old, and then they would go at it all the time. And then they had an older sister that was 12, and she floated off the bed, unconscious. And all of these rumors is what got child services involved, and they did a walkthrough. Dude, I don't know. The 12-year-old had to be psych eval'd, and she told health professionals that she was paralyzed and felt like she was being choked. The priest that performed the exorcisms was Reverend Michael Maginot, and he even performed an exorcism on the lady or the girl that stabbed herself and then tried to attack her mom. And you can watch her just fold up. Man, it's weird. Like, really, really weird. I don't know. Of course, Bagans, being the PR guy that he is, he does supposedly, he sees something, which of course the camera's conveniently out of focus when he sees it.
Ain't that strange how that works?
Yeah. And then according to him, he suffered some kind of severe headache behind his eyes. His eyes were so messed up that he has to wear prism glasses. After that, he bulldozed the house in February of 2016. But like a dumbass, He kept like 7 or 8 5-gallon buckets of the dirt from the basement. He kept stuff they found in the basement under the stairs that would lead you to believe that someone had put a curse on the house. Like I said, like up until that point, you're like, man, this fucking shit's real. And then you watch him turn into his old self, and you're like, you fucked the whole thing up. But yeah, if you'll watch it, and when they first start talking about it, they interview all the cops and the child services, and then they tell exactly what's happened to those people in their lives after they came in contact with the house. Ain't no way in hell I'd have went in that son of a bitch.
No, I'm good. I'm good on all of them, man. I don't really want to see a ghost at all.
No, out of the things that we talk about, this is way down on the list of I hope nots.
I mean, I would like to see a Sasquatch, at a zoo behind, 10-inch thick glass. But
I'd like to see a UFO. Well, I'd like to see a more clear picture of a UFO. Not clear picture. Maybe I should rephrase that. I would like to have an encounter where it's a little bit clearer of what I was looking at. Bigfoot, yeah. I'd like to see one of them. I'd like to see some of them other cryptids. But ghosts and hauntings and poltergeists, y'all can have all that shit. No, sir. Look, it's so bad after doing this podcast, I don't think I could go to a damn national park, to be honest with you.
Not at night. Not at night, for sure. And not alone. Nah, hell no.
Well, that is our dabble into some of the most haunted places in America. If you have a haunting or a ghost story that you would like for us to talk about, give us an old ring-a-ding on the email, and we'll put you on the list. I do want to say we usually do this at the beginning, and I'll have to check see if we've gotten any new ones. But we had a new patron from Perth in the United Kingdom. I'm going to try to get you your decals, but everybody else that has joined since mid-December, into December, I don't think they've gotten there. So I'm mailing out, I actually mailed out a fresh batch 2 days ago. So this is Thursday the 6th. So if you were a patron the month of January, or if you're a patron, you just signed up first week of February, your decals will be on their way. I apologize. I just have not been out of town to mail them from a different post office. My post office is like that. I don't know. Mr. Ed's going to have to get on that, and he listens to the show quite regularly. So the last one, I believe, was Cody Hanscheck, and I think we shouted that one out. But anyway, Anne Marie Riley is our across the pond patron, so thank you. We're going to need, kind of like people are like, oh, you're from Arizona, do you know so-and-so? It's a whole state. I probably don't know them. We have that mentality when it comes to European countries. So what I'm about to say is stereotypical. I'm going to need, for everyone that lives over there that is a patron, y'all need to get together and do a GoFundMe, and we'll come visit.
Absolutely. Hey, we have a 5-star review we forgot to talk about.
Hit them with it, bub.
This is from Kate Monster 128. Addictive. I stumbled onto this podcast after getting caught up on Necronomipod. These guys are awesome. Well-researched, great banter, and all-around fun to listen to. I listen to podcasts constantly because my job is so boring, and this is one of my favorites. We'll definitely make your job easier as long as you put us in your headphones.
That's right. That's right. Don't put us on the Bluetooth speaker.
That's right. Just don't do it.
What the heck? That's a picture. I was about to say my phone was just charged, but that's a picture. We don't have any newer ones. I don't think. I was trying to get it to refresh, but it's not going to. Again, I apologize with our patrons. So, it's just one of those things about the old postal service around these parts. So we've got, it says I have a new notification, but what is it? Hello. What does this say? Nope. None of that. So it's nothing. All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Recommendations. I'm going to recommend you watch the Demon House documentary up until Zach boards or locks himself in there and they board the windows and doors. After that, you can turn it off because it ain't nothing worth listening to. You got a recommendation besides your long lost cousin's books that you're trying to hawk?
I'm going to recommend the Jerry Springer documentary on Netflix. I watched it recently. It's fascinating.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's worth it.
What's it about?
Jerry Springer?
Does it go over how he got into...
It goes over everything.
Why is this messing up? Anyway, all right. You got anything else there, Slapnut?
No, I don't.
Deuces.